While you were watching the US election, Reseda was busy stealing your social security number and bank account details. Columbus officials quickly reported that nothing had been encrypted, and the city was still investigating whether sensitive data had even been taken. Rather than simply updating their cyber defenses, Columbus did what any reasonable city might do. They sued security researcher David Leroy Ross, aka Connor Goodwolf. Accusing him of spreading stolen data and branded negligent, the city went after the Goodwolf with a $25,000 lawsuit plus a restraining order. Then came the ransom demand. But in a twist that would make a Hollywood villain chuckle, they didn't ask for dollars, euros, or Bitcoin. Nope, they asked for $125,000 in baguettes. Welcome to the Security Brief for Week 45. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe and share this news. To our first story, in a city where 905,000 people call home, 500,000 of them now get to experience the joy of finding out their data was stolen and has been living a double life on the dark web. You see, the Reseda ransomware gang dropped in uninvited, swapped a whopping 6.5 terabytes of the city's data. That's right. While you were watching the US election, Reseda was busy stealing your social security number and bank account details. Columbus officials quickly reported that nothing had been encrypted, and the city was still investigating whether sensitive data had even been taken. Meanwhile, the Reseda gang didn't sit around waiting for an invitation to negotiate. They claimed the heist immediately, listing out their findings. Sounds like a hacker's dream and a city official's worst nightmare. Rather than simply updating their cyber defenses, Columbus did what any reasonable city might do. They sued security researcher David Leroy Ross, aka Connor Goodwolf. Accusing him of spreading stolen data and branded negligent, the city went after the Goodwolf with a $25,000 lawsuit plus a restraining order. A judge approved it, barring Goodwolf from any more downloading and sharing of city data. If you're one of the 500,000, keep an eye on those credit reports and maybe avoid downloading anything sketchy for a while. Moving on. Schneider Electric, the powerhouse in energy and automation products, announced it was hit by a cyber breach after a hacker named Grep managed to get into their Jira server. Apparently, Grep found the golden within Schneider Electric systems. Grep claims they pulled off a data heist, scraping 400,000 rows of user data, including 75,000 unique email addresses, employee names, and project details. And folks, it was no small job. This haul adds up to more than 40 gigabytes of sensitive information. Over the weekend, Grep took to social media, taunting Schneider on X, formerly Twitter, and casually announced their breach. Then came the ransom demand. But in a twist that would make a Hollywood villain chuckle, they didn't ask for dollars, euros, or Bitcoin. Nope, they asked for $125,000 in baguettes. That's right, folks, a French-themed ransom demand for a French company. Or, as they put it, half the ransom if Schneider issues an official statement. But here's the kicker. This isn't Schneider Electric's first rodeo. Earlier this year, their sustainability business division took a hit from a Cactus ransomware attack, where hackers claim to have lifted terabytes of data. It seems Schneider Electric has become a magnet for cybercriminals, even though they're working overtime to keep their products and services safe. Meanwhile, their global incident response team is fully mobilized, and Schneider assures the public that its products and services remain untouched by these shenanigans. So, what's next? Schneider is in a high-stakes game with Hellcat, who's ready to leak all that sensitive data if the ransom isn't paid. If you're a Schneider customer or employee, it might be a good time to double-check those email settings and watch out for anything suspicious. And remember, folks, nothing says modern cybersecurity drama like hackers demanding baguettes. Moving on, Nokia's latest security scare. That's right, folks, the company that put a cell phone in every 90s pocket is now investigating claims that its source code, yes, the sacred code, might be up for sale on the dark web. And here's the kicker. It wasn't even Nokia's servers that got hit, but a third-party contractor's. It all started when a hacker known as Intel Broker began advertising Nokia's source code for sale on the dark web. Intel Broker claims they got the goods after slipping into a third-party contractor server and found gold. We're talking SSH keys, source code, RSA keys, Bitbucket logins, and a buffet of other juicy access credentials. They say the data belonged to Nokia, allegedly gathered through a SonarQube server, left wide open with default credentials. Nokia issued a statement acknowledging the hacker's claim and have launched an investigation to get to the bottom of this breach. So far, Nokia hasn't found evidence that any of their actual data was impacted. For those unfamiliar with Intel Broker, this hacker has a resume that reads like the cybercriminal version of a LinkedIn profile. In the past, they've hit everyone from DC HealthLink, which manages healthcare for U.S. House members and their families, to big players like Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, T-Mobile, AMD, and even Apple. This isn't the first time Intel broker has taken a swing at major corporations through third-party vendors. They've previously used similar techniques to leak data from a host of tech giants after accessing exposed SaaS platforms. It's part of a larger trend, folks. Third-party security is quickly becoming the new weak link in the digital chain. So for now, Nokia is standing by, monitoring the situation and tightening security across their third-party partnerships. It's yet another reminder that in today's world, even a default password can lead to major drama. Moving on, a cyber showdown straight out of Canada, where authorities have arrested the notorious hacker behind a series of data thefts from Snowflake. This isn't just any heist, folks. This man is accused of swiping data from hundreds of millions of people after targeting some of the world's biggest companies. Canadian authorities took 26-year-old Alexander Connor Muka into custody after the U.S. issued a request. Known in hacker circles as Waifu, or Judashi, Muka had allegedly been enjoying his life as a cyber sleuth for hire until last Wednesday, when law enforcement caught up to him. Now facing extradition to the United States, Muka is accused of making himself a household name on the dark web by targeting none other than Snowflake's high-profile customers. Snowflake is the data storage giant trusted by thousands of organizations worldwide. But starting in April 2024, Muka allegedly found a way to slip into Snowflake accounts of over 165 organizations by exploiting weak security setups and stolen credentials from malware. Among the companies targeted, big names like MasterCard, NBC Universal, Capital One, AT&T, and even Yamaha. Muka reportedly got into these accounts through stolen credentials. If the account didn't have multi-factor authentication, he was in. Simple as that. From there, he pulled data by the truckload, even managing to swipe 560 million customer records from Ticketmaster, 109 million call logs from AT&T, and personal data from countless other users. It's a stark reminder, folks, of the power of strong passwords and two-factor authentication. Following the breach, Snowflake isn't taking any more chances. The company announced mandatory multi-factor authentication on all new accounts created after October 2024, along with a requirement for passwords to be at least 14 characters long. So it's game over for weak passwords in the Snowflake world, at least for now. As Muka sits in custody, waiting to see if he'll be extradited to the US, authorities on both sides of the border are keeping their cards close. But if convicted, Muka could be facing serious jail time for his alleged role in one of the largest data theft campaigns we've seen this year. On to our next news story. Interpol has scored a major victory against global cybercrime. In an international sting called Operation Synergia 2, Interpol, working alongside 95 countries, cracked down on cybercrime infrastructure tied to over 22,000 IP addresses, arresting 41 suspects and dismantling over 1,000 malicious servers. Here's how this global effort went down. Between April and August of this year, Interpol led a sweeping cybercrime takedown across continents, focusing on servers and IPs used to fuel ransomware, phishing, and information stealing attacks. With help from private cybersecurity firms like Group IB, Kaspersky, Trend Micro, and Team Simru, Interpol's intelligence team identified more than 30,000 suspicious IP addresses. And the numbers are staggering. Roughly 76% of those IPs were taken offline, 59 servers seized, and 43 devices confiscated for further investigation. So far, 41 people are in custody, with Interpol working closely with international authorities to question another 65 suspects linked to the attacks. Among those taken down, a variety of phishing operations, information stealer malware hubs, and ransomware delivery channels. Each takedown represents a significant blow to global cybercrime. In a worrying trend, Interpol highlighted how cybercriminals are increasingly using generative AI to make phishing attacks more sophisticated. Information stealers, another rising threat, are becoming the opening act for ransomware attacks, a category that's up by 70% in the past year. From malicious emails that look more authentic than ever to malware embedded in websites and apps, it's clear that cybercrime tactics are evolving. With phishing, ransomware, and information stealer malware becoming critical global threats, Interpol's Operation Synergia 2 isn't just a victory. It's a reminder that the digital battlefield is as vast as it is dangerous. So stay alert, keep your security tight, and remember that cybercrime has no borders. Moving on, D-Link NAS device users. D-Link has announced they won't be fixing a major security flaw in over 60,000 older network-attached storage (NAS) devices, leaving small businesses and users with few options to protect their data. Let's break down what this means. The flaw, tracked as CVE 2024-10914, has a critical severity score of 9.2 and affects older D-Link NAS devices, popular among small businesses. This flaw allows unauthenticated attackers to inject arbitrary shell commands by sending crafted HTTP GET requests. In plain English, hackers could potentially control these devices remotely, no password needed. With a publicly available exploit out there, these devices are effectively open doors waiting to be breached. Several popular D-Link models are impacted, including the DNS320, DNS320LW, DNS325, and DNS340L, each running on specific firmware versions. These aren't obscure models. These are the devices trusted by thousands of small businesses for secure file storage and sharing. Security researcher NetSecFish, who discovered the flaw, showed that a hacker only needs to send a simple curl command to the device's IP address with a malicious name parameter to exploit the vulnerability. The command creates a URL that directly triggers the command injection, allowing hackers to do almost anything with the device remotely. In a move that has disappointed many users, D-Link announced they won't be releasing a fix. Why? These devices have reached end-of-life status, and D-Link no longer supports NAS devices. The company recommends that users either retire the devices or, at the very least, disconnect them from the internet to avoid exposure. If replacing the device isn't an option, experts recommend isolating these NAS devices from the public internet or using strict firewall rules to limit access. It's a temporary solution, but for now, it's the best option. As technology ages, security updates end, but users are left with legacy devices that can become serious security liabilities. D-Link's choice not to patch this flaw means users will need to take matters into their own hands or ultimately upgrade. If you have an older D-Link NAS device, it might be time to plan a safer storage solution. Moving on, Google's latest app update, Android version 15.44.27.28, released on November 6th. Right after the update, users noticed something unusual. Links they shared through the Google app suddenly carried a search.app domain at the beginning. Whether you're sharing a Reddit post or a news article, you'll see leading the way, and it has some Android users worried that their devices might be infected with malware. The change sparked immediate discussion on social media. Posts popped up on Reddit and other platforms with users asking if this was a new Google feature or a potential security issue. Some even feared it was adware or malware hijacking their device. However, things get weirder. Bleeping Computer and other tech sources noticed that the SSL certificate for search.app lists multiple unrelated domains in its subject alternative name, or SAN. Users have raised concerns that this might be Google's attempt to mimic Apple News, which also prepends links with its own domain. But unlike Apple, Google hasn't documented this change, which leaves many users wondering why Google didn't give them a heads up. This isn't the first time Google has confused the public with mysterious domains. In the past, Google's gvt1.com domain raised similar questions. Google hasn't yet commented on this latest development. For now, quote, search.app quote links appear to be safe and managed by Google, but the lack of transparency is puzzling for users who like to know exactly what's happening on their devices. This story is still developing, and we'll be here to bring you any updates as they come. Moving on to our last story, security researchers have discovered serious vulnerabilities in Mazda Connect, the infotainment system found in many Mazda models, including the Mazda 3. These bugs could allow hackers to take control of the system and even install persistent malware. Researchers found 6 critical vulnerabilities in Mazda Connect, ranging from command injection flaws to the ability to upload unsigned code. This means that with the right exploit, a hacker could take complete control of the infotainment system, running arbitrary code with root-level permissions. In plain terms, a hacker could do almost anything once they're in. Exploiting these vulnerabilities requires physical access to the car's USB port. However, as security expert Dmitry Janushkevich points out, this access might not be hard to come by. Think about all the times your car is out of sight: valet parking, dealership service, even a quick workshop visit. In a matter of minutes, a hacker could plug in a USB drive, upload a crafted update, and compromise the entire system. The risks are significant. Hackers could gain control over the infotainment system, manipulate databases, create files, and even inject commands that could impact the car's core systems. The biggest concern is that attackers could use CVE 2024-8356 to install malicious firmware, giving them potential access to critical vehicle controls like the engine, brakes, and transmission through the car's CAN, controller area network buses. Unfortunately, Mazda has yet to issue a fix for these vulnerabilities. The affected devices are still unpatched, and there's no word yet on when or if Mazda will release a software update to address these critical security gaps. In the meantime, experts are advising owners of affected Mazda models to be cautious about who has access to their vehicle's USB port. In an era where vehicles are becoming increasingly connected, these vulnerabilities highlight the need for stronger cybersecurity in automotive systems. Persistent malware and unauthorized access to critical controls underscore just how high the stakes are as cars continue to evolve into tech-driven machines. If you drive a Mazda, it might be time to think twice about where you park or who services your vehicle. Until these vulnerabilities are addressed, physical security for your car's tech systems is more important than ever. That's it for this week's news. Which story did you find most interesting, or any story that you wish was included? Make sure you comment under. Make sure to subscribe, and I see you soon.